One single night, the world woke up believing one of the biggest nuclear threats in history had been wiped out. Smoldering craters replaced billion-dollar underground facilities. 18,000 precision machines, each spinning at 90,000 rotations per minute, were silenced forever. World leaders celebrated. The press declared victory.
Tonight I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success.
But deep in the halls of international intelligence, something didn't add up. Reports started trickling and whispering a disturbing truth. What if it was all just a big show? What if the real Iranian nuclear secrets were never where everyone thought? What you're about to find out will completely change how you see espionage, military strategy, and the true nature of the planet's most controversial nuclear program. Because sometimes the biggest win can actually be the biggest loss. In June 2025, a coordinated military operation between the U.S. and Israel hit three of Iran's most important nuclear facilities simultaneously: Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan. What was supposed to be the final blow to Iran's atomic program turned out to be a way more complex and intriguing story than anyone could predict. And to understand how big this operation really was, we have to go back in time and unravel one of the most fascinating tales in modern nuclear proliferation. Iran's nuclear program didn't start from scratch. In fact, its roots trace back to one of the most sophisticated nuclear espionage networks in contemporary history. In the 1980s, Iran secretly kicked off a domestic uranium enrichment program that got a huge boost through illicit foreign assistance. The connection came through the notorious proliferation network led by the late Pakistani metallurgist Abdul Qadir Khan, who stole centrifuge blueprints from Urenco, a British-German-Dutch company, to Pakistan in the 1970s. Khan's network was basically a black market nuclear supermarket. By the late 1990s, Khan had shipped Iran over 2,000 centrifuge parts and assemblies meant for uranium enrichment. For 2 decades, he secretly supplied North Korea, Libya, and Iran with the tech blocks and intellectual know-how crucial to making nuclear weapons. The network offered buyers a menu of technical expertise and materials priced from millions to hundreds of millions of dollars. Khan's network was finally exposed after years of intelligence gathering by the US and the UK. This covert tech legacy turned Iran into a regional nuclear power over the following decades. The Iranians took the stolen knowledge and refined it, developing their own centrifuge versions and setting up a domestic production chain. By 2024, the Iranians were producing uranium enriched to 60% purity, a dangerously close level to the 90% needed for weapons-grade material. To put it in perspective, natural uranium only contains about 0.7% uranium-235, the fissile isotope. Enriching to 60% means Iran had already completed over 90% of the work needed to reach weapons-level enrichment. The numbers were alarming. According to analyses from the Institute for Science and International Security, Iran had enough material to produce up to 9 nuclear devices in just 3 weeks. This capability put the entire geopolitical balance of the region at risk and forced a coordinated international response. To truly get what was destroyed in the attacks, we need to understand the technology at the heart of Iran's nuclear program. Centrifuges are incredibly sophisticated machines that use fundamental physics principles to separate uranium isotopes. Gas centrifuges spin uranium hexafluoride gas to separate isotopes suitable for nuclear fuel, a process called uranium enrichment. The number and capacity of these machines determine Iran's breakout time, how long it would take Iran to produce enough material for nuclear weapons if it decided to. Imagine a metal cylinder spinning at insane speeds, up to 90,000 rotations per minute. These speeds are so extreme that the centrifugal force generated is 100,000 times stronger than Earth's gravity. Inside this cylinder, uranium hexafluoride gas is subjected to forces that gradually separate heavier isotopes from lighter ones. Khan's early success with Pakistan's uranium enrichment program was followed by more advanced designs like the P-2 centrifuge, an adapted version of the German G2 that can spin twice as fast as the earlier P-1 model. The process is incredibly delicate. A tiny vibration, a microscopic flaw in the material, or a temperature fluctuation can cause a catastrophic failure. That's why centrifuges are arranged in cascades, groups of hundreds of machines working together to gradually concentrate uranium-235. By August 2024, Iran had increased centrifuges at Fordow and installed at least 10 cascades of advanced IR, 6 centrifuges, allowing for higher uranium enrichment. The attack targets represented decades of investment and tech development. Natanz, the main complex, wasn't just a nuclear site, it was an underground city dedicated to uranium enrichment. built partially underground to protect against air strikes. Natanz housed thousands of centrifuges organized in precisely climate-controlled rooms. Fordow posed even bigger challenges. Built inside a mountain, this underground centrifuge facility at Iran's main enrichment site was hit by two specialized weapons. The location choice wasn't accidental. Iranians had learned from earlier Israeli strikes that surface facilities were vulnerable. Isfahan, meanwhile, was the heart of Iran's nuclear fuel cycle. This site not only enriched uranium, but also converted yellowcake, uranium concentrate, into uranium hexafluoride gas fed into centrifuges. Alongside the bombings, a U.S. submarine launched more than 24 cruise missiles, hitting buildings and tunnel entrances at a third nuclear site in Isfahan. The prep for these attacks wasn't last minute. Israel started planning for military action against Iran in late 2024 after spotting an alarming acceleration in Iran's nuclear program. The assassination of Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader and one of Iran's main allies in Lebanon, apparently triggered Iran's nuclear push. What many don't know is this operation was the result of years of intelligence work. Agencies like the CIA, Mossad, and MI6 had infiltrated Iran's nuclear program, mapping every facility, centrifuge, and process. International coordination was extraordinary. France, via its intelligence service, provided crucial info on supply routes and tech transfers. Germany gave data on industrial components potentially used to rebuild centrifuges. The UK shared years of monitoring Iranian communications, but intelligence also revealed something worrying. Nicolas Lerner, head of French intelligence services, publicly confirmed that the current location of Iran's highly enriched uranium remained uncertain. This admission from a top European agency highlighted the situation's complexity. The military operation itself was a logistical masterpiece. U.S. and Israeli military planes took off simultaneously from different bases, following carefully planned routes to avoid air defense systems. Cruise missiles launched from submarines in the Persian Gulf, while deep penetration bombs were dropped by strategic bombers. But in the weeks after the strikes, intelligence analysis teams started processing satellite data, electronic intercepts, and field reports. What they found completely changed the story about the operation's success. Israeli military sources, as reported by the New York Times, revealed a significant portion of the highly enriched uranium survived the attacks. More troubling, that material remained potentially accessible to Iranian nuclear engineers. How was this possible? The answer lies in Iran's cunning and preparation. Later analyses suggested Iran had implemented a system to disperse nuclear material weeks before the attacks. Special containers holding enriched uranium were discreetly moved to alternate facilities, some unknown to the international intelligence community. The Isfahan facility proved particularly resilient. Built deep enough to be practically invulnerable to conventional weapons, it kept significant stocks of uranium enriched to 60% intact. This discovery completely changed the operation's implications. David Albright, a nuclear proliferation expert at the Institute for Science and International Security, warned thousands of additional centrifuges could be stored at undisclosed sites. What we saw was an impressive strike against visible infrastructure, Albright noted, but Iran's nuclear program has always been more resilient and distributed than many thought. Post-attack analyses painted a picture of a nuclear program evolved specifically to survive military strikes. The Iranians had carefully studied previous Israeli attacks on nuclear sites in Iraq and Syria, learning valuable lessons about vulnerabilities and protections. Iran's strategy included multiple layers of defense. First, geographic dispersion. Instead of concentrating the whole program in a few large sites, Iran gradually spread critical capabilities across multiple locations. Second, redundancy. Critical components were duplicated and stored separately. Third, mobility. Specialized transport systems allowed quick relocation of sensitive nuclear materials. Intelligence experts suspect some nuclear material was moved to alternative sites days before the strikes, suggesting Iran had info on the planned operation. This possibility raises worrying questions about infiltration in Western intelligence circles or the effectiveness of covert ops against a prepared adversary. The reality is Iran turned its nuclear program into a mythological hydra. Each attack facility was designed expecting it would eventually be found and destroyed. The real Iranian nuclear program existed in the shadows, in smaller, stealthier sites never caught on satellite images. Although the attacks destroyed significant infrastructure, the true cost in terms of delay to Iran's nuclear program remains controversial. While the Trump administration claimed the program was eliminated, independent technical assessments told a different story. The International Atomic Energy Agency and independent nuclear experts estimate the program was delayed by months, not years. With enriched uranium already available, Iran could potentially rebuild enrichment capabilities within months, especially if it has spare centrifuges never installed at the attacked sites. The most critical factor is time. About 18,000 centrifuges were destroyed or heavily damaged. To put this in perspective, each centrifuge represents years of tech development and massive financial investment. Modern centrifuges like Iran's IR-6 are precision machines requiring specialized materials and sophisticated manufacturing techniques. But the crucial question is, how many additional centrifuges does Iran have in stock? Intelligence sources suggest Iran's nuclear program always ran with excess capacity, holding strategic reserves of critical components. If those reserves exist, rebuilding time could shrink dramatically. The global community reacted with a mix of relief and skepticism. European powers, led by France, started considering restoring UN sanctions against Iran, recognizing the situation was far from resolved. The European Union, through its High Representative for Foreign Policy, expressed concern about the lack of transparency in Iran's nuclear program. The withdrawal of IAEA inspectors from Iran and shutdown of monitoring cameras created an info vacuum that seriously complicated any accurate assessment of Iranian nuclear activities. China and Russia, Iran's traditional allies, condemned the strikes as unilateral aggression and promised help rebuilding Iran's infrastructure. This pledge meant Iran wouldn't face reconstruction challenges alone. The regional response was also significant. Gulf countries, traditionally worried about Iran's nuclear ambitions, cautiously supported the military operations. Still, they also voiced concern about possible Iranian retaliation and regional escalation. How fast Iran can rebuild its nuclear capabilities remains unknown. Factors like tech access, international funding, and ongoing diplomatic pressure will heavily influence the recovery timeline. But the fact that enriched uranium is still available means Iran doesn't have to start from scratch. With nuclear material already processed, the country can focus on rebuilding enrichment infrastructure, a potentially faster process than developing a brand new program. The operation against Iran's nuclear sites revealed both the power and limits of modern military force. While massive damage to physical infrastructure was possible, the ultimate goal of completely wiping out Iran's nuclear program wasn't achieved. What we have now is a situation where Iran, though temporarily set back, still has both the material and determination to rebuild its nuclear capabilities. The question is no longer if Iran's program can be revived, but when and how it will happen. The real battle for the Middle East's nuclear future is just beginning, and the final outcome remains uncertain. What we know is Iranians proved to be craftier opponents than many expected, and that cunning might be the decisive factor in the next chapters of this nuclear saga. Tell me in the comments, which part of this operation surprised you the most? Do you think Iran really fooled Western intelligence, or is all this part of an even bigger game? And if you want to keep uncovering the secrets behind the headlines, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell, because while the world sleeps, we dig into the truths shaping our future.